Part 1. The Parisian Rivalry. The scent of old paper and ambition hung thick in the air of Librairie de la Lumière, a legendary but struggling publishing house nestled in Paris's left bank. Elara Vance, a sharp-witted literary agent from New York, had been sent to salvage it. Her mission: streamline, modernize, and make it profitable within 6 months, or the New York owners would shutter its doors forever. From the moment she stepped inside, her every move was watched by Alexandre. He was the house's most celebrated editor, a man whose intuition for bestsellers was matched only by his disdain for corporate interference. He moved through the crowded bookshelves with a possessive grace, his fingers often brushing against spines as if communing with the spirits within. Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories. Their first clash occurred in the weekly editorial meeting. Elara presented data-driven charts, market analysis, and a list of proposed genre acquisitions. "The numbers don't lie, Monsieur Dubois," she stated, her voice crisp and clear. "The market for heartfelt literary fiction is contracting. We need to pivot to commercial thrillers and romance." Alexandre leaned back in his chair, a sardonic smile playing on his lips. "The numbers, Mademoiselle Vance, cannot measure soul. They cannot quantify the heartbeat of a story. We are not in the business of selling product. We are in the business of curating legacy." He was an infuriating paradox, a romantic traditionalist in a warm tweed jacket who could dissect a manuscript with surgical precision. She was a force of modern efficiency in a tailored suit, armed with spreadsheets and a formidable reputation. To him, she was a corporate bulldozer sent to pave over a sacred garden. To her, he was a brilliant but obstinate relic, standing in the way of progress and survival. The Parisian spring unfolded outside the tall windows of the library, but inside, a cold war raged. They communicated through terse memos and barbed comments left in manuscript margins. He would slip a volume of Rilke onto her desk. She would respond with a report on quarterly sales figures. The entire staff held its breath, navigating the minefield between them. The turning point came with a manuscript titled The Silent Symphony. It was a sprawling experimental novel by a reclusive author, a project Alexandre had championed for years. The New York office had flatly rejected it. Financially unviable, the verdict read. Elara found Alexandre late one night in his office, the rejected manuscript sitting between them like a corpse. The arrogant facade was gone, replaced by a raw, weary defeat. Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories. "They are wrong," he said, his voice slow and strained. "This is not just a book. It is a piece of art. It will be remembered long after their spreadsheets have turned to dust." Elara, against her every professional instinct, picked it up. She spent the night reading, the data-driven part of her brain fighting a losing battle against the emotional tide of the prose. It was brilliant, challenging, and yes, a commercial risk. But it was also the kind of book that had made her fall in love with literature in the first place. The next morning, she walked into his office, her own exhaustion mirroring his. "You're right," she said simply, "but being right won't save it. We need a strategy." A fragile truce was born in that moment. They began working together in stolen hours after the office emptied. He was the architect of the book's soul. She became its strategist. She devised a bold marketing plan, targeting prestigious literary prizes and creating a buzz among key influencers. He provided the profound insights that fueled her campaign. He brought her strong coffee from the local bistro. She produced sandwiches when he forgot to eat. She discovered his passion for obscure jazz records. He learned she could recite Baudelaire. The late nights were no longer battlegrounds but a collaborative sanctuary filled with the quiet energy of shared purpose. The Silent Symphony was published to critical acclaim. It became an unexpected commercial success, a testament to their combined genius. The staff, once divided, now watched their partnership with hopeful fascination. The New York office was appeased, and the immediate threat to the publishing house receded. But a new threat emerged. A rival publishing conglomerate, Odyssey Media, made a lavish offer to buy Librairie de la Lumière. The offer was tempting enough to make the New York owners reconsider their commitment to keeping it independent. Elara was instructed to analyze the offer, a task that felt like a betrayal of everything they had just saved. Alexandre was incandescent with rage. So this was a plan all along? Make it healthy just to sell it to the highest bidder, to turn it into another factory? This isn't my plan, Alexandre. This is business. I have a responsibility to my employers. To hell with your employees. What about your responsibility to this? He gestured wildly, encompassing the entire soulful chaos of the library. That night, Elara sat alone in the silent office, the buyout offer blowing on her screen. She looked at Alexandre's empty chair, at the manuscript notes they had scribbled together, at the life she had built in this city that had slowly stolen her heart. She thought of his passion, his stubborn belief in beauty, and the way he had looked at her last week, not as an adversary, but as something infinitely more precious. She didn't send the analysis. Instead, she drafted a counter-proposal, a daring plan for long-term independence that was riskier but would preserve the house's identity. She knew it was career suicide if it failed. She went to Alexandre's apartment near Montmartre, the manuscript of her proposal in her hand. "I'm not selling," she said, her voice trembling slightly as he opened the door. He stared at her, his anger replaced by wary confusion. "Why?" "Because you were right. Some things have a soul, and I think I've fallen in love with it." Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories. Part 2. The Language of a New Story. He didn't say a word. He simply took her hand and pulled her inside. His apartment was a reflection of him, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a vintage record player spinning a soft Miles Davis tune, the lights of Paris twinkling in the background. The air between them, once charged with conflict, was now electric with a different kind of tension. All the unspoken words, the stolen glances, the shared triumphs, coalesced into a single, undeniable point. "Lara," he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. He cradled her face, his thumb stroking her cheeks. His gaze was intense, searching, full of a vulnerability he had never shown her before. When he finally kissed her, it was not with the haste of passion, but with the slow, profound reverence of a man reading a long-awaited final sentence. It was a kiss that tasted of coffee, of old books, of Parisian rain, and of a future she had just chosen. His hands moved from her face, sliding down her back, pulling her firmly against him. The efficient, controlled Elara Vance felt the architecture of her old self collapse. Her arms wound around his neck, her fingers tangling in the hair at his nape as she kissed him back with equal fervor. This was the language beyond data and analysis, a primal, intuitive dialogue they were both fluent in. He led her to the bedroom, a space dominated by a large window framing the sacré-cœur. Moonlight streamed in, painting silver stripes across the floor. With deliberate slowness, he undressed her, his knuckles grazing her skin, leaving trails of fire. Each button undone was a sentence in their new story. Each piece of clothing that fell away felt like shedding a layer of her old armor. When they were both bare, he laid her down on the cool sheets and began a meticulous, worshipful exploration of her body. His mouth was a revelation, tracing the line of her jaw, the slope of her shoulder, the curve of her breast. He kissed the hollow of her stomach, the inside of her wrists, the sensitive skin behind her knees. It was an editorial process of the flesh, a careful, passionate revision of her every boundary. She was laid bare, not just physically, but emotionally, her every gasp and sigh raw, an edited manuscript of desire. Subscribe to my channel and like to receive more interesting stories. When he finally entered her, it was with a slow, deep certainty that stole her breath. There was no rush, only the slow building rhythm of their joining, a perfect, wordless prose. The world outside, the distant hum of the city, the whisper of the wind faded into a hush. There was only the feel of his skin against hers, the sound of their ragged breathing, the profound connection that went deeper than any professional partnership ever could. The climax, when it came, was not a sudden explosion but a deep, resonant crescendo that seemed to echo through the very foundations of Paris, leaving them trembling, spent, and irrevocably changed. Later, wrapped in each other and the silence, her head rested on his chest. She could feel the steady, strong beat of his heart beneath her ear. "What happens on Monday?" she murmured, her lips brushing his skin. He tightened his arm around her. "On Monday," he said, his voice a soft rumble in the dark, "we go to war. Together. We present your plan. We save our library. We write our own story." And they did. The united front was formidable. Elara's brilliant, impassioned proposal, backed by Alexandre's unwavering credibility, convinced the New York owners to take a chance. Librairie de la Lumière entered a new golden age, becoming a beacon for authors who cared about art as much as commerce. A year later, during the Paris Book Fair, under the grand glass roof of the Grand Palais, Alexandre Dubois, a guardian of literary souls, got down on one knee in front of their entire staff and industry. In his hand was not a ring, but a first edition of the Silent Symphony, with a simple platinum band tucked inside its pages. "Elara Vance," he said, his voice carrying through the hushed crowd. "You are the most unexpected and brilliant edit of my life. Will you merge our libraries forever?" Her yes was lost in the roaring applause, but the kiss they shared wrote the perfect first line for the next best chapter of their lives.